And we're all live. What's going on, everyone's live with Kenny, episode 46. Today, I want to kind of focus my topics on trade-offs that must be understood in politics. And I think that, as you saw today, I gave my recap and reaction to the State of the Union. And I kind of want to hamper on some of the topics that was brought up by Joe Biden: abortion, climate change, and I want to kind of hit on socialism as well, because I think a lot of the things that Biden was preaching really in his speech in the State of the Union is centered around socialism. So I want to kind of use this variety of topics to really hammer on this point about how trade-offs must be understood in our political landscape today. So first story to really highlight this is the GOP-led House passes the Laken-Riley Act, where 170 Democrats voted against it. So what's in this act? Let's do a little bit of deep diving into this, because I really think that there's a concerted effort to make American voters ignorant. I think the reason why they want to make American voters ignorant is that they want to remove this is why progressive education, I believe, is creating mass stupidity. It's because since people don't have the ability to read at a high rate, they can't go out and seek information for themselves. And I think this is one of the biggest problems in the future of our republic, is that there's a famous quote I like to quote, Frederick Douglass: "A man who can read is forever free." And the ability to decipher and disseminate information on your own without an arbitrary third party gives you an immense power and independence in making decisions for yourself. And I think the reason why mainstream media is also losing its narrative is that a lot of more people are becoming intellectually curious. And in the public school system, where they're teaching kids to be, men can be women, women can be men. And I understand the left's fascination on dying on this hill of transgenderism and the border security, but I digress. The U.S. House of Representatives passed the Laken-Riley Act on Thursday, a bill that would require federal agents to arrest illegal immigrants who has been charged with theft in the United States of America. By a vote of 251 to 170, the House approved the bill that is named after Laken Riley, the 22-year-old Georgia nursing who was brutally murdered, alleged by an illegal immigrant who she was out on a run last month. All Republicans voted, 37 Democrats helped pass the bill, and 170 Democrats voted against it. Now, the bill sounds pretty plausible. Hey, if you're convicted of a crime, you should be deported. The 170 House Democrats just voted against the Laken-Riley Act, refusing to require the detention and deportation of illegal migrants who have caught committing crimes. This should be a common sense bill here, right? But it goes back to what Joe Biden has highlighted in the address when they talk about, give me the bipartisan border bill and I pass it right now, using this proposition to further expand government power. And I don't like the little narrative games that's being played by Joe Biden, right? And trying to make this thing a partisan issue. And Mike Johnson, I believe his synopsis on this is valid. Sadly, these Democrats have their ways. There will be more victims like Laken Riley. Now, some of the problems that I have and with understanding trade-offs is that some people don't understand, why are the Republicans against passing the bipartisan Senate border bill? The problem is processing these migrants or these illegal immigrants is creating the wrong incentive. If illegal immigrants find out, we can come to the border illegally and they'll process us even faster, it's not going to create a positive incentive for them to come in legally. It's going to force more people to come in illegally. And the fact that they want to focus on processing, adding more bodies on the ground to make the processing faster. The point is, Republicans do not want to be able to process the flow of immigration. The problem is conservatives want to close the flow, right? Essentially, this is my best analogy for the differences between the border. Democrats want to add more bodies, more buckets to process the flow of water coming into the country, aka migrants. Republicans are like, let's just close the faucet, handle all the water that we already processed, make sure they're of high quality, make sure they're good, make sure we deport all the ones that shouldn't be here, who have a criminal record, make sure we got them documented, all this stuff. Then we worry about, let's reintroduce the flow into the country again, right? And I think the fact that Joe Biden removed the Remain in Mexico policy, which is a trade-off. I think voters need to understand this. When Joe Biden said, "Hey, remain in Mexico," when Trump had the remain in Mexico policy position, illegal immigration was way down because people realized, damn, I can't get my asylum process and stay in the country of the United States of America. I have to stay in Mexico until my asylum process gets in. There would be no need to add more funding for the border patrol or ICE. There will be no need to add more bodies to the ground because whenever we get to the paper, we'll get to them, right? And this was a more, I think, tax efficient way of handling the border issue. But instead of reintroducing that, Joe Biden wants to, give me more power so I can shut down the border at my discretion. You think Biden will ever use his border powers to shut down the border? No. This is the trade-offs that I'm talking about. This is the trade-offs I think Americans need to understand, right? And especially with all the incentives that I highlight with the Democrats. Most Democrat cities are sanctuary cities. I already showed you how illegal immigration helps increase the congressional power of Democrats because they still get counted in the consensus. They still get counted as part of the population of these blue cities, blue states. That's more government seats for them. And especially in these Democratic strongholds like New York, Boston, Massachusetts, and California, you're giving them more power, more sway. If you look at the congressional house, the House of Representatives, California has a disproportional amount of seats in the Senate. Not in the Senate, in the House of Representatives. So that means they get to, you get more of the California perspective on these bills being passed. And that's due to the heavy help of the census, aka their population numbers, which they're sanctuary cities, inviting illegals over there. So I even highlight, as a conservative, I'm highlighting the motive, the political motives for why Democrats would want illegal immigrations flowing into the border. Even though they try to play this narrative, the illegals can't vote. We're not doing voting for illegals. Sure, you may not be doing voting for illegals, but what about generations down the line? Their kids may vote Democrat, right? You will use the fact that, hey, look, we allowed these immigrants to come into the country, and if you let the Republicans get in, they'll get deported. And the nationalized American that's family came here illegally, they have conflict of interest, and Democrats leverage that to get a strong hold on the Hispanic vote, right? This is the reality of how the Hispanic vote is overwhelmed. Democrats have like 60% of the Hispanic vote is because of this long-term game that they're playing. In the short term, Democrats benefit from increased census, more congressional seats, and they leverage that to push more of their agenda in the House, in the Congress. That's why we always seem to be spending more and more money. It always seems to expand. The government always seems to expand because California, New York are overrepresented in the House of Representatives. So these laws tend to skew towards their favor. And this is one of the trade-offs I think that a lot of people need to recognize in politics, right? But I think a change is coming, right? Because as you see, RNC today's March 8th is International Women's Day. Is my mom's birthday, by the way. So say happy birthday to my mom. But Ronald McDaniels had to step down today, and Michael Watley and I can't spell today. Laura Trump has been elected to lead the RNC. So with this new change in leadership in the RNC, I'm hoping that more funding goes into the correct candidates. I think hopefully the messaging change. Hopefully that we able to exhilarate and increase engagement, ballot chasing. I think this is some of the important stuff. Like, we have to play the game to win the game. Former President Donald Trump hold on the Republican National Committee was further secured on Friday as his picks for the party leadership position was unanimously elected. The RNC voted on the chair and the co-chair positions during its leadership meeting in Houston weeks after Ronna McDaniel announced she would be stepping down from RNC chairwoman. Shortly after, reports of McDaniel's departure began swirling following Trump's request that she step down. The former president endorsed Michael Watley for chair and his daughter-in-law Laura Trump for co-chair, and both were elected unanimously vote. President Trump deserves to have the team he wants in place at the RNC, McDaniel said as she announced her resignation on Friday. Vivek's 2 for 2 right now, boy. So I want you guys to listen in on the speech. Let me get it ready for you guys, and then I'll further espouse my thoughts on this. Oh, this is why when you're watching on Twitter.
Today because I have long promised to put the nominee and their plans for the RNC first. Winning the White House back is just too important for me to do otherwise. President Trump deserves to have the team he wants in place at the RNC. When I made the decision to step aside, there was no one else I supported to be the next chair more than Michael Whatley. Michael and I have had a very close relationship as he ran North Carolina. He ran to be my co-chair last year. I appointed him as general counsel, and he will be phenomenal on, I know, an issue President Trump cares deeply about, which is election integrity. I am rooting so hard for Michael and Laura's success, and I offer all the help and guidance I can to help ensure that you do succeed in your roles, and thank you for stepping up.
Yeah, so I think that the tides were turning already, and it just seemed like this primary showed the dominance of the American First movement, right? I like to say the American First movement because I'm more of a Vivek supporter than I am a Trump supporter. But essentially, we're highlighting the same problem: is the idea that we want the Republican Party to be a national populist party, and if you're not showing a national populist perspective, or you don't have a national populist perspective, I think you need to step down. And it seemed like Ronna McDaniels tried her hardest to stay in the party, but she didn't want to let go of power. I don't know. These politicians, they only care about consequence. Jonathan Fields, appreciate seeing you, man. I haven't heard from you in a long time. Good to see you, Kenny. Hope you're doing well and your families as well. God bless as well. Yeah, but back to my point here. And I kind of like the change. I mean, I know donations was at a record low during the whole primary session because, Ronna McDaniel had her spats with Vivek, threatening to withhold fundings or threatening to withhold our Republican constituents' money towards candidates that they support because of personal vendettas. So I think a lot of this stuff wasn't a good look for Ronna. The failings in previous races, the 2022 midterms, I think 2020 as well. A lot of the candidates that a lot of the voting base wanted to win, wanted the support behind them. It seemed like it was like pulling teeth to get funding down there, and that kind of resulted to one of the reasons why we didn't get a red wave, because the money wasn't being allocated properly in those races. And I think this switch up may how can I say this in a way? Maybe more in line with what the base actually wants, because the base already made Trump their nominee. So this is a trade-off I'm willing to make. And I think we need to start thinking along these lines, that there are no perfect solutions. There are no perfect candidates. We're all flawed human beings. Because remember, if we were perfect people, there will be no need for government, right? So all the critiques, anyone can have a critique for Trump. Everyone can have a critique for Vivek. But for right now, Trump's the nominee. Trump's the last man standing. Trump deserves to have the party fully embrace him. And I think having his two picks as leaderships of the RNC, I think this shows a defining moment this might be a historic moment in the Republican Party's history, that we are making like a shift. Now we have some type of we have more influence over races, support for, I guess, American First candidates, because it seemed like with Mitch McConnell stepping down, it's kind of a conceded effort on our part. Like, hey, look, we're taking over the party. Now it's time to, remake it in our image. And I think we did a successful job, more successful than progressives that sit here and complain all day talking about how, Democrats are corrupt, both sides are corrupt, but they're not doing anything about it. They're not actively participating in these national committees and try to advocate more for themselves. AOC had a chance to do something like this to create actual real change in the Democratic Party, but they fumbled the bag. So now that, American First Republicans are actually in the base is actually getting some headwind here, I see this as progress, that we're able to properly gain power in one of the parties and able to push an agenda that is more centered around the people. Now, the Democrats may not agree with it, but this is what the people want. People want more attention to Americans. People want Americans to be priority. They want to be first priority when it comes to bills, when it comes to foreign aid and foreign policy. The angle has to be how is it best for the nation, not what's best for your pockets and your corrupt bureaucrats and using foreign aid as a means of money laundering. Because this is one of the reasons why I think both sides of the aisle love foreign aid spending, because it's a way for them to launder money overseas and then get kickbacks in different ways, right? Biden Inc., right? Biden Inc. is the prime example of this. But I think I did a long-winded rant there, but I kind of wanted to give my full thoughts about this because this live stream, this episode is about trade-offs, and I have a myriad of examples and ideas that I really want to get into. So I want to wrap up this video and then move on to the next segment. So let's get back into it.
I leave you all with just one final request, and I don't think it's going to shock you. Join me in putting our country first. We know people. We talk to them every day. I hear every day they're hurting. They are struggling. They can't afford groceries. They can't afford rent. They are seeing crime rise in their streets. They are seeing fentanyl come across our border. They're afraid about our open border. Joe Biden is a disaster for the American people, not just him, but all the Democrats. So I'm going to ask you to join me in uniting for the next 8 months and committing everything you have to make sure that we keep the House, we win the Senate, and we take back the White House and send President Trump there. Thank you so much. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
It's official. Now we got a new chairman, and then co-chair Laura Trump.
Ma'am. If you would, all please rise again and give our Madam Chairman another round of applause and thank you for her service.
Yeah. So Trump has officially, like, but this is, before I move on to the next thing, I think the one warning I would give. Oh, and good afternoon, D James ZW. Appreciate you for showing up in the live chat. Before I move on to the next segment here, I want to highlight one kind of risk this move that by Trump is the fact that he will now be held liable for whatever the result is for 2024. So I think as much as it highlights the takeover of the American First sentiment, like, it's not a real pure takeover. I mean, there's still a lot of people who are more establishment leaning, who are more the traditional conservative types. But I think it shows that it highlights how much more power that we have, how much more influence and standing that we have within the I guess the system of the party, within the infrastructure of the party. Unlike the progressives, there seems to still be at this, oh, you're just a voter, you're just an advocate base, instead of actually having people in the actual thralls of the committee. And I think that's the next step that progressives will have to make. But I mean, us conservatives were ahead of them at this point. So I think that we should leverage this fact as fast as we can. But I think this poses a risk to Trump that if anything happens, if we end up losing really bad, it'll be hard for Trump not to say it wasn't his fault because, hey, we gave you the chair. You're the chairman and the co-chair is both people that you elected, that's in charge of the funds, that was in charge of the committee for these races, and you weren't able to deliver in 2024. So this is a high risk, high reward type of power play by Trump, in my view anyway. But I would like to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section or in the chat. Let me know it. But yeah, I'll leave my thoughts at that. So in the next segment, we're going to talk about Letitia James. She was booed during a speech at a firefighting ceremony, and she was met with chants of Trump. Now, this is changing tides, right? I'm speaking about how I think there's a change. I don't know why. I'm feeling really optimistic, and usually you can see from the bias on the top. Out of 15 sources, 77% of the people covering the story were right-leaning. So if you're a leftist, centrist, you may not hear about this event that has happened. New York Attorney General Letitia James ran into a tough crowd on Thursday when she spoke at a ceremony for the New York City Fire Department. The Democrat prosecutor was showered with boos when she walked onto the stage for the swearing in ceremonies of first responders, including Pamela Holmes, who was hailed as the first African-American woman complaint of the FDNY. The Fox News reported. "Oh, come on, we're in the house of God," James said in the apparent attempt to quiet down the chorus of boos simmering down. Shortly after the boos stopped, James' speech was interrupted by chants of Trump, Trump, Trump. So we're gonna react to this. Let's play it a little bit. So it's a 23-second clip, so it shouldn't be too long.
Oh, come on, we're in a house of God. First, Simmer down. I want to thank Commissioner Kavanaugh and Chief Hodgins
in New
for
York.
That recognition.
This is in New York, guys. This is in New York. Thanks for the $2 super chat, D James DW. That was so sweet to see. I know, right? I knew a lot of people would probably like it. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are going to be watching this clip, this segment, the most. That Letitia James was getting booed in New York City, matter of fact. So after James' address, Chief John, Firehouse Chief, Fire Department, New York City's Fire Department Chief John Hodges rebuked those in the crowd who voiced their disdain for the Attorney General. Today's ceremony was about one thing: the accomplishment of the members being promoted, he said. The members whose behavior distracted from that celebration was an embarrassment and a not befitting of the world's best fire department. See, you know what I like about people on the left? Is that when they do something, it's perfectly valid, it's perfectly fine. Oh, you got to be understanding, right? But the minute it goes against them in the opposite way, now they want to get mad. Now they want to say, oh, decorum, we need decorum. But when they do it, oh, it's fiery and passionate. Oh, where's that for us? See, this is what I'm talking about. When people sit here try to act like they're objective, I don't believe it. To me, you come across more suspicious to me if you try to pretend that you don't have a bias. James recently celebrated the decision against former President Donald Trump, ordering him to pay $454 million fine, including interest in the civil business fraud suit, even though there was no fraud committed. But, I digress. From the Attorney General's office, James filed the suit against Trump after she ran for her position, promising voters that she would go after Trump. This is one of the things that I find funny, is that when a lot of these people come out and say, I'm not political. Oh, this attack on Trump is not political. But the Attorney General who's presiding over these processes actually ran on the fact that she was going to attempt to go after Trump, right? And then when Trump sits back and says, I'm being prosecuted just like black people get prosecuted in this corrupt justice system. Who, by the way, I made this point before, but I'm gonna repeat it here on this live stream. That I think Democrats have the most corrupt justice system, honestly. Because when I hear people complain about how unfair the justice system treat them, it's always in these heavy Democratic cities. I can give Kamala Harris. She was the biggest she made her career being a prosecutor, right? The weed thing, how black people and a lot of these black liberals complain about how they were put in jail, they were put under the jail, they were overcharged, they were unfairly prosecuted by the system for weed possession. Kamala Harris was the main prosecutor doing that in California. Oh my God. Yo, it's so funny how when you dig deep, the very thing these people complain about, Democrat policies was the very source of it. Craziness, isn't it? But I'm done. That was my Letitia James segment. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Just give me a like for me in my video if you're watching this on the live stream, on a replay. But I want to focus on, because this is the episode is Trade-Offs Must Be Understood. And with this State of the Union address, I want you guys to listen in on some insights from Vivek, my favorite candidate for the presidential primaries. And he gives he brings to our attention some of the strategies and some of the talking points that will be the general Democratic talking point. And I think that if you're a centrist or you're a person who is undecided, you need to contemplate, okay, what are the trade-offs here if I believe Biden? Is what Biden's saying really true? Or this is just a narrative or a framing that he's trying to push, so I'm more able to go towards him? Because like I said, in politics, this one thing people need to understand about politics. In politics, it's better to bring someone down than to highlight how you are better. That's it. Hey, look, don't shoot the messenger. But this is the truth. This is the truth about politics. And this is a trade-off people must understand. So when they see people on the ads tearing each other down, just know that this is the easiest and most cost-effective way for a politician to give across his point, to advocate himself. And it's up to you to make a logical, functional choice and understand, okay, how exactly what is the actual negatives of these policies, right? If I believe Biden and say Trump is the worst thing since sliced bread, does that really matter on the grand scheme of things in my life, right? Like when Martin Luther King, and I'm giving you an anecdotal example here. When Martin Luther King voted for the Democrat Party, he was voting against for a party that was openly racist towards him. Lyndon B. Johnson in 1959, these uppity N-words, right? They think we need to put them back in their place. 1959, Lyndon B. Johnson was saying this stuff. And in the same breath, Trump voted for, Martin Luther King voted for his party because he saw something, okay, I want something tangible. I want something feasible. In our politics today, a lot of politicians focus on the desirability of their policies instead of the feasibility of their policies, right? One of those things are tax the rich. And I finished on my State of the Union recap video. I highlighted some of the problems with taxing the rich, that it's not feasible, and if it is feasible, the cost will outweigh the actual gain of putting that tax rate at the rate that they want, especially when that constituency is paying 76, is responsible about 70 to 60% of the tax revenue that's being generated in America. How does it make any sense to tax these people even more? It makes these people who are big advocate for tax the rich seems greedy to me. But, I digress. So let's listen in on what Vivek has to say about his thoughts about the general Democratic strategies against the Republican Party.
The speech he gave paints a caricature of Donald Trump and his policies that actually pretends like it's more like George Bush that he's running against.
Right.
And I want to say that when you think about the issues he prioritized the most, let's just see it for what it is. Donald Trump is not the Republican candidate who's calling for tax exemptions for private equity billionaires.
He's not.
He's not the Republican candidate who's calling for cutting Social Security or cutting Medicare or letting pharmaceutical companies off the hook when it comes to drug pricing caps. This is actually pretty ironic because within the Republican Party, starting in 2016, Donald Trump is actually the one who led a revolt within that same Republican Party, largely abandoning those same policies. So we can get into the policy.
And that's the funny part, right? Like, oh, they want to cut Medicare, Medicaid, blah, blah, blah. And the funny part is, like, I think one of the reasons why I also felt like the speech was divisive in a way is because it was like jumbled up memory gargle, right? It was like he was talking about like an old Republican, like George Bush. It sounded like he was talking about George Bush. Who Obama ran against in 2008? John McCain? That's how it sounded like. It sounded like he was talking about John McCain. Because when he's talking about cutting Social Security, I don't remember Trump ever talking about cutting Social Security. I don't remember ever saying that, right? So this is why, like, I felt like he came across as a liar, right? But I digress.
See debate on its own merits later. You'll have some Republicans on one side of these questions, some Republicans on another side of these questions. But what I thought was most interesting about tonight is that we got a lot of insight into what I think the Democratic machine's approach is going to be for the rest of this year, which is to paint Donald Trump's policies as George Bush's policies,
right?
Criticize Donald Trump for his persona, and pretend like Donald Trump doesn't actually agree with much of the country and even some of the Democrats in that room on issues relating to pharmaceutical drug pricing, Social Security, Medicare.
Well, we had the fact check there.
That was the most interesting.
Yes, and Donald Trump was the first president to oversee an actual reduction in costs of prescription drugs, and that was largely because of the way the market was working, let alone the policy as it related to, I don't know if it was Medicare, Medicaid, and insulin out-of-pocket costs not being higher than $35, which, of course, former Vice President Biden reversed and then created a new policy to take credit for it.
Wow. You see the political games, bro? Wow. So he rejects Trump's proposal that was giving a similar effect to what he's bragging about right now, abolish it, then goes back, creates it again, and then it was just the same thing with the stimulus thing. Trump passed the stimulus, but he was dealing with COVID. It was more acceptable to pass the stimulus during COVID. Nah, Biden's like, I can't let Trump be the only one who passed a stimulus check. Let me pass my stimulus check. And a lot of people, a lot of economists pointed out that stimulus check would have a more inflationary cost compared to Trump's because of the fact that we're already up and at 'em. People are already back to work in a feasible large capacity, and giving a stimulus check now will overheat the economy. Will rapidly increase inflation, and we felt inflation for 2021. Oh my God, 2021 was insane. People were complaining about inflation, and then he had to create a bill to rectify some of that, to cool it off. And then he's bragging about, oh, look, inflation's down. Yeah, but you bring it up in the first place. This is what I'm talking about. Trade-offs must be understood. When these Democrats come in running for, oh, we give you free stuff, you need to understand what trade-offs they're actually trying to make here, right? And I don't understand what's up with Democrats and the transgender issue, because, you know, that was one thing that also that Biden mentioned was the transgender issue. And I want to highlight an example of how radical this idea is. It's because some Democrats got offended because I made a video, Democrats are more radical than Republicans. And a lot of Democrats came in and talking about, I'm quoting misinformation. And I'm like, yo, I'm giving you the videos. I'm giving you the examples. I don't want this stuff. Your party is for this stuff. Your party is tolerant towards this stuff. My party is not tolerant towards this stuff. So I'm going to vote Republican here, right? So here's the video. I'll let you read the we'll watch the video a little bit, and then I'll give you some of my thoughts. So give me a sec to put it up. And here we go.
I use she, her pronouns, and I've been a first grade teacher for 16 years. I'm here in support of this bill to make rainbow flag bans prohibited. What does a rainbow flag mean to my students, my classroom? Here are some words for my first grade babies. It means my teacher will stand up for me. It looks like the flags at my house, so I feel home. It means we all are here together. My students feel the importance of windows and mirrors. I want every child, family, and staff member to have a clear visual of inclusion and safety in the community I build. We know students, families, and staff members need to feel safe in order to learn, thrive, and continue to share their talents with us. My rainbow flag stands for welcoming spaces, trust, resilience, compassion, joy, collaboration, and community without judgment.
See all the word salad they do. Like they do all this stuff to sound good. Hey, we're for this, for that. But you're advocating for something. You're pushing something onto the children, right? And the kids are most vulnerable to. They're the most impressionable group of people in our country. And you're introducing these concepts that will be very hard for them to really give pushback for, because they have a limited experience or a limited understanding of what you're actually doing here. So you paint it in a nice, colorful language. Oh, my rainbow flag. I can make the same argument for Christian flags. I can make the same argument for putting Bibles back in schools. But you think you would accept it? No, because you guys, the same argument that I'm giving was the same argument liberals gave long time ago to remove the Bible out of public school. But here you are pushing your religion onto us, our children. And DEI, LGBTQ, all this stuff, to me, it comes across as a religion. Right? James Lindsay, classical liberal, she gives it away. She says the pride flag in her classroom means you are loved. It means you are loved here and not other places. It's a tool for breaking children from their families and societies into cult communities. And this is why one of the reasons why this stuff pushes people to go towards Trump, right? And I had a Trump deranged person in my comment section, and I kind of want to use Joe Rogan as a way of exemplifying what is TDS. And TDS stops a lot of people of opposing of the left to really agree with Trump as the viable solution to the problems of our time, because they don't like his personality, right? Using feelings based against rationale. These are the type of people that will cut their nose to spite their face as long as Trump don't win. Even if Trump is the best chance at a better society in the long run, they don't care. They're like, no, I'd rather stick it out with the Biden guy. Inflation's not that bad, right? This is the chaos that we have in our culture. This is what happens when we have a feelings-based culture. This is what happens when we have a culture that's based on self-esteem versus self-control. Self-control goes, it don't matter how I feel about Trump. Trump's policies has the most probability of success to fix the issues that we see in our country today. I have to vote for the guy. Self-esteem says, no, it hurts my feelings if Trump wins again. It don't matter if Trump's the best choice. I won't vote for Trump. Even if it destroys my country, I won't vote for Trump. These are the kind of positions that a lot of these emotional people have. And then they're the ones who claim that, oh, because you support Trump, you're in a cult. Who's in a cult? Like, I believe the left is more in a cult than the right. I already showed you facts, evidence. Democrats are more likely to block people of alternative political views. If you're a Republican, you're more likely to have friends that are of an opposite political worldview. If you're a Democrat liberal, you're not. You're more likely to block these people, especially if you're a woman. So you create these echo chambers, and then when you get exposed to someone with a different opinion, you're going to say they're in a cult. No, you're in a cult. But, I digress. Let's get into a video.
That Trump derangement syndrome, that's a real thing. It's a real thing. And I think there's some people that are fragile already. The world is just like the anxiety and this and that.
Right.
And also this position of being the person of virtue, the angry, loud voice of reason. That's a weird banner to carry when you don't have your own shit together. When your own life is chaos. Your fucking mental health is very unsteady. And you're out there preaching and telling people what to do. And as you start losing, and Trump's the president now, and you're like, he's going to get arrested, and he never gets arrested.
Right.
And then they're going to take him off the ballot, he's an insurrectionist. Nope, Supreme Court says.
Yeah, these are these little hot take rationalizations they use just to perpetrate an action that they want. Because you don't like the guy, you want to send him to jail. That's the real reason you want Trump in jail. Not because he actually did anything legitimately wrong. It's because you feel some type of way about him. You feel negative things about him. Therefore, you want to make a prejudgment on him and punish him for it. You don't base on the reality of what Trump actually did. You want to hit him with a $400 million fine because you don't like Trump, but not liking Trump is not enough to give him the $4 million fine. So you find any little thing he did. Oh, look, you did business fraud, even though no one got defrauded, but you think they got defrauded. So it don't matter what they think. It matter what you think. And you give them a judgment, a summary judgment to punish him because you don't like him. Machiavellian tactics, Machiavellian power. And this is something too, that mental health issue that Joe Rogan highlighted, because liberal women are the least happiest women on earth. So you get these deranged liberal women who it don't matter if Trump was the most innocent man alive. They want him prosecuted. He's guilty until proven innocent. That's how liberal women look at Trump. This was behind the insurrections narrative. This is what was behind Russian collusion narrative. This was what was behind I forgot what I was going to say there. This was what was behind the fraud case, the grape case that he was prosecuted with, that they had to change the definition of the law so that way Inge and Carroll can go back and get him on prosecute him, changing rules to fit their feelings. This is what is behind the rationale for taking him off the ballot. I'm being honest, bro. Liberal women are the worst thing to happen to this country, bro. I'm being dead ass serious. Let's get back into the video.
Unanimously.
Right.
No. It's like it just like it further compounds and you never get a win. You never get a win. You got a little bit of a win when Biden won, and then the chaos after the Biden administration and all the things that we knew were true, that he was mentally compromised, all those things come out. And that's not a win. So then you're just in this constant state of like anxiety and chaos and saying nonsense things, like almost like he wants you to come after him because you came after him.
Yeah, so he's talking to right against in that point, but it leads into this idea that the liberals project onto you what they're really guilty of. They talking about, oh, you're in a cult, Kenny, you're in a mega cult. It's so sad to see black men like you getting caught up in a cult. And I'm like, okay, give me an example of what I said that was misinformation. Give me an example of how I'm in a cult. If I'm in a cult, wouldn't the cult not accept you criticizing your leader, right? This is what I'll show you every person who thinks, when Trump was here bragging about the pandemic, the vaccines that he helped created, people in the comment section are lambasting Trump over this. But you still want to put on this narrative, liberal, that people in the conservative movement see Trump like some cult leader. No, he doesn't have a cult-like following. That's a imagination that you created in your head and you try to purport it to be reality. You liberals sit here and say, oh, the conservatives are idiots that can't think for themselves. You didn't hear that Trump is getting roasted in the comment section for writing this on Truth Social. Does this sound like the narrative that the Democrats like to purport about Trump supporters? No. We disagree with Trump. We disagree with anybody. That means we have a mind of our own. It's just you don't have one. You think we're like you. Projection. This is projection. When a Democrat says, oh, you're in a mega cult, I say, no, you're in a liberal cult. Because if I can prove why I believe what I believe. You can't prove what you can't believe. Like, you said we're in a mega cult. Look at us disagreeing with Donald Trump about the vaccine. They think we kiss Donald Trump's butt on every turn. We don't. We just like the guy. We think he's a perfect representation about what we want in our country. They don't want it. They don't want to accept the liberals don't want to accept the fact that A lot of people support Trump on policy, not just because he's some personality figure. No, we agree with Trump on policy, and we believe he's the perfect representation of how we feel about you. And I have these liberals who seem to rub two brain cells together, try to frame a narrative around my videos and trying to say that this is misinformation. And then when I challenge them on it, okay, what is misinformation? Is misinformation things that come out that you don't agree with, that don't see eye to eye to your worldview? No, you dismiss it and you continue smearing people. Oh, you racist, xenophobic people. Oh, you part of this cult. Almost like they're trying to convince themselves that what they're saying is actually true when it's not. I don't understand the left sometimes, man. I honestly do not. Right? And then here's the chart I promised you. Liberal teenagers report significantly worse depression. It's almost like obsession with activism and gentle parenting isn't primarily good for mental health. Look at this. Female liberals. Look at it. Female liberals is the purple line. Look at that. Male liberals, you're not too far behind. Right? You unhappy, sad souls. But, you know, I digress. That's enough for my segment there. Countering out that narrative about us being in a cult. Another issue that was brought up by Joe Biden that I kind of want to highlight too is that people need to start understanding the trade-offs when it comes to abortion. Yes, I haven't talked about abortion in a long ass time. And I found a perfect video that kind of encapsulates some of the thoughts that the average pro-choice person has. And one of the things I would say before we go into the video is that pro-choice is not a moral position. You can't, if you're pro-choicer, right? Or no, actually not pro-choicer. If you're someone who's pro-abortion, your worst arguments is the moral ones. If you try to make a moral argument, oh, women deserve the right to choose, that's a bad argument. You're going to get destroyed by someone who actually knows what they're talking about when it comes to the abortion issue, which is most pro-lifers. They're not. I think so, right? Because me, I can go from the black version. A black woman mentioned this, by the way. A black conservative woman. I saw this argument from a black conservative woman. Shout out to her. I forgot her name. And she was like, yo, any argument you make about abortion, you can make a similar argument for slavery. And I was like, ain't no way. It's not a human life. It's not a human being, the slave. Oh, he's not a human being. He's property. Oh, that's not a baby. It's a clump of cells. Same argument. I was like, oh my God. So the argument the conservative have, especially a black conservative have about abortion is, if you believe that people deserve human rights, why are you not granting human rights to the most vulnerable person in the world, which is a human baby? A human baby. And the standards that a lot of these pro-abortion people use is arbitrary. If it's arbitrary, their marriage is merely subjective. There's a medical consensus that everyone agree that life begins at conception. That's the starting point of human life. When you form DNA is a form of human life. People try to use this argument pro-abortion people who don't think things thoroughly will say, we only recognize life based on consciousness. Okay, what about when you fall asleep? You're not conscious when you're sleeping. So am I allowed to kill you in your sleep? You're gonna say no, right? And it's these arbitrary standards. When you feel pain. What do you mean when you feel pain? There's some people who are born with a medical condition where they can't feel pain. Their sensory nerves are damaged. They can't feel anything. Are we allowed to kill them now because they can't feel pain? They don't know when they're dying. Like it's so ridiculous. I know this from personal experience as a father of 2 kids. My kids were moving and dancing around in the womb at 3 weeks old. Like I saw movement, they were moving. I said, "Yo, this stuff is alive." And here's an argument that I think is hard for like pro-choicers pro-abortion people to really rectify in their head. I was like, there's nothing different between you at 1 week old and you at 2 years old. The only difference is you got bigger. That's it. So because you're minuscule or you're not paying attention to the baby, you feel justified in killing it. And a lot of pro-abortion people that I have met and I had these conversations with, they really struggle with that because it highlights the fact that you base things based on time. Okay, why not do 2 years old? Why you can't kill a 2-year-old? A 2-year-old is still dependent on you for its survival. Another human being is not really purely independent of you until it gets to about 16, 18 years old. That's when they really become more self-sufficient. Pro-abortion people be like, no, that's not what we're saying. It's the woman's right. You can't force a woman to harbor a baby in her body. And I say, okay, how many choices did the woman make before she got to the point where she conceived the baby? She made a choice to sleep with a certain individual. She made a choice not to prevent the pregnancy from happening. So all you're saying is you want to absolve the woman of responsibility. And this is the core argument of pro-abortion people. This is their real motive. And everything else is a smokescreen. When they try to appeal to morality, when they try to appeal to women's rights, body autonomy, all of it is smokescreens in my view. It's all based on convenience for the woman. Is it convenient for the woman? When they say it's up to the woman, is the woman's right to choose? It's whatever convenient for the woman. If it's convenient to have the baby, the woman should have the baby. If it's inconvenient for the woman to have the baby, then the woman shouldn't have the baby. That's it. That's the real motive of pro-abortion people. So when they try to do morality, this is how they allow them to get destroyed. So I digress. I've been rambling enough. I'm gonna watch you guys watch this video between a guy. He's an abolitionist. He's a small YouTube channel. I'll have the link in this video in the description if you're watching this on the replay, so you can watch the full video yourself without my commentary. But let's get into it.
Ava, nice to meet you.
Hayden, good to meet you. So yeah, what's your position on abortion?
I am pro-choice mostly because there are women out there that do get impregnated that don't want to be, and there's a lot of women out there that choose not to be pregnant, but they are either way, and sometimes it can be very damaging to their bodies. Like if they're forced to be pregnant but they're just not ready to be mothers, it can be very dangerous.
So I'm gonna stop it right there. So this is one of my problems with the left. They think things in very theoretical terms. They don't think things in practical terms. Practically, sex serves a function. Sex produces life. Like when you have sex, there's a chance that you will produce life, right? You're not masturbating here. You're engaging in sexual intercourse. Therefore, the expectation is, hey, a life could be produced and created in this act. So instead of going up front and accepting the risk, right? Because we all been educated with sex ed, so we know what we're getting ourselves into. And instead of accepting that possibility, women want the choice to be like, no, I don't want accountability for this. I don't want accountability to the fact that I decided to sleep with this man unprotected, or I didn't do my due diligence into preventing the possibility of pregnancies to happen. And if it did happen, to me, I'm like, oh, I have to accept the things that it is, right? If you accidentally killed somebody and you didn't know it was illegal to kill somebody, you still have to suffer the consequences of killing someone. That's how I view pregnancy. That's what I'm saying. Pro-abortion is all about absolving women of responsibility for their sexual choices. That's it. That's the reality of all this, right? And the left sit here and pretend that sex exists just for the pleasures of people. No, that's hedonism there. That's not practical. That's not reality. That's imagination. Oh, sex doesn't mean, just because you have sex doesn't mean you want a kid, but you can't separate the two. It's one and the same. To create birth control pills, people had to recognize the reality that what comes with sex comes with the risk of pregnancy, what comes with the ability to produce life. So recognizing that reality allowed them to create a solution to mitigate that result. But nowadays, these people don't want to, like, people try to treat like motherhood as if it's unnatural to the human condition. This is the reality of a decadent culture. This is my problem. A lot of people don't understand trade-offs anymore. A lot of people don't understand that there's risk in everything you do. And the best you can do is put the odds in your favor. If the odds are not in your favor, hey, you have to accept the reality. Because I don't believe a woman should be allowed to kill her child because it's inconvenient for her at the stage of life that she decided to engage in sexual intercourse that produced her child. Because end of the day, regardless if you view your baby as a bag of cells, because end of the day, there always was a bag of cells. You're still a bag of cells. You just got bigger. That's your child. Sorry. You're still its mother. Regardless of whatever you want to name it. You want to name it a fetus? You want to name it toenails? You want to name it a clump of cells? I don't care what you want to call it. That's your child. Fetus just means human offspring. That's all it means. But here you are trying to rationalize it. This is what I'm saying. Pro-abortionist people, bro, y'all are some of the most delusional debaters ever. Because they'll sit here and say pro-lifers are delusional. And I'm like, the pot calling the kettle black? You're delusional. You're literally here saying, hey, we should be allowed to kill another human being because of how we should perceive the human being. I perceive the human being of not actually being a human being because it's still too young for me to consider it a human being. It's not developed enough for me to consider it a human being. When fetus just represents the human life, the human development life cycle. What's the difference between a fetus and an adult? Adult is a fully formed, fully developed human being. Fetus, the beginning stages of human development, the human developmental stages. And because I'm in the earlier stage of my development and you're in a further along stage of human development, you're allowed to kill me because you're my mother. There's no way you can make it a moral argument here. That's why I equate slavery and abortion as being the same concept, the same thing. Because essentially you're saying that the child is the property of the mother and is of the mother's will to do whatever she wants with it. The same way a slave owner can do whatever the hell he wants with his slave. He wants to have sex with his slave against its will. It doesn't matter because it's not human. If he wants to kill his slave, it don't matter. He's allowed to do it because it's his property. And nearly we're doing the same logic for women to kill their offspring. Oh, this is not a human being. It's my baby, my body, my choice, right? My money, my choice. I bought this slave with my money. I can do whatever the hell I want with this slave. But this slave's a human. Don't matter. I bought the slave. The slave's here because I'm here. Who feed that slave? I feed that slave. Who's providing for that slave? Who's making sure the slave is fed, clothed? I can do whatever the hell I want with it. That's how women are starting to treat their kids from an abortion standpoint. That's how women who are pro-abortion view their children as property. That's just my thoughts. To me, that's the most honest position. That's the most honest position a pro-abortionist can come in my face and say, if you're not saying anything like that, you're lying to me, using everything as a pretext, as an excuse, as a shield to hide the true motive for why you're pro-abortion. Men, it makes sense why men are pro-abortion because they don't want to be responsible for your child. But for women, craziness. But hey, this is the results of our self-centered culture. Everything for the convenience of ourselves. We don't like things that's inconvenient for us. We don't want to be held responsible for our own choices and actions. Look at student loans. Student loans are so popular with the youth. Why? Because they don't want accountability for the choices and decisions that they made. It's the same concept here in the abortion debate. I'll let this video ride out for one more minute and then I'll move on to the next segment.
It's like they could have, the concept escapes me at the moment, but it's when the egg attaches outside of the uterus. Ectopic pregnancies. So it could be very fatal for the mother, but the baby itself has no chance. It will essentially die and the mother could die eventually. So I'm all for beliefs.
The true middle ground, right? If I put in my own idealistic beliefs aside and face more on realistic, like this is the realism coming out. I can agree to abortion only be available for medical emergencies, but I know you abortion people are not going to accept it because you guys do not actually care that atopical pregnancies happen and you want the abortion to be an option for to deal with atopical pregnancies. Because the reality is only less than, I will repeat myself, less than 1% of abortions are actually needed for medical emergencies. So that means out of 100 million abortions that happens a year, less than 1% of those abortions, that means less than 1,000 abortions have some way was needed for medical issues. But these people use the exception to try to justify the rule of abortion. This is the problem with abortion. Majority of abortion is based on convenience. How convenient it is for me to have this child. If I got pregnant by LeBron James, I'm keeping his baby. If I got pregnant by Joe Slow, I don't want to have his baby. Right? It's just based on whatever's convenient for the woman. This is where the women's right to choose. That's the really concept of it. That's the root motive of it. But I digress.
I think it's free. I think as a country, we're free to believe in what we want to believe. That's why we have the Constitution.
No.
The Pilgrims came here for freedom.
So no, that's not what we're here for, bro. We have a duty and responsibility to each other, to our society, to our communities, and to our offspring in our family. Now, you can't have a right without responsibility. That's just how I go. That's just how I think. Because that's the only fair way you can't have unlimited rights without any responsibilities. I don't give a damn about your rights. I don't give a damn about what you're entitled to. What about your responsibilities? Right? You have ability for free speech. Okay, what's your responsibilities? How you use that free speech? How you use those rights? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Everything in moderation. There's no moderation in this debate. Oh, women, we should be able to do the hell you want to do. You want to have an abortion at 40 weeks? Go right ahead. Oh, no, that's too extreme. But if the woman wants, she should be allowed to do it. That's how it is. Always falls back. Feelings. We're a society that lacks self-control. It seems like we're stuck in this self-centered, narcissistic worldview of the government should be letting me do whatever the hell I want. No. Because you don't have the right to do whatever the hell you want. You don't have ultimate freedom. Ultimate freedom would be like anarchy. Oh, I'm allowed to kill this guy, shoot this guy. I'm allowed to steal from his stuff. Why are you not allowed to steal from his stuff? Property rights. Private property rights. Okay. If you are an individual human DNA, doesn't that mean your body is your choice? We're talking about the baby's body overrides your choice to kill it. You can't decide the fate of someone else just because he resides in your body because of a choice you decide to make. It's baffling to me. Women want their cake and eat it too, right? You want unfettered abortion, but at the same breath, if you want to keep the child, you want to be able to have process of child support. Because if you happen to get a rich guy, if a rich guy happened to impregnate you, that baby's surviving. You pro-life that day. You want child support. You want all that stuff. Because those, to me, those are pro-life positions. Those are pro-life policies. And it seems like women are caught up in this emotional cycle of where they want their cake and eat it too. And I think this is one of the reasons I picked abortion, because abortion is the best case scenario to encapsulate why people need to understand what trade-offs are. You need to make a trade-off here. Because right now, the way things are currently set up, it's not fair. Women are allowed to absolve themselves of being parents, but men are not allowed to absolve themselves of being parents. So why do you deserve to have more rights than a man? I thought you wanted equal rights. This abortion issue is really going to cause a lot of conflict with feminists. Because if they were truly feminists, they'll say, oh, yeah, you're right, Kenny. So we should also give the men the right to choose. But if you're not saying that, then my position is more consistent as a pro-lifer. Both sides are not allowed to kill their kid. A man's not allowed to absolve himself of parental responsibility. A woman's not allowed to absolve herself of parental responsibility. That's it. If your position ain't, if you don't have a position that's fair like that, then you can't really come at it, the abortion issue, from a moral issue if you're a pro-abortionist, because all you really care about is women's rights. So that means you're pushing for privilege for women. This is a privilege for women. This is not a right. It's a privilege because men don't have it. Therefore, it's a privilege. But I digress. The guy hasn't even been able to speak yet because of me.
Of religion and everything like that. But our Constitution also stipulates freedom of religion. So there are lots of religions out there that don't go with Christianity or Catholics. And what a lot of these people are doing is pushing a lot of the Catholic ideology. So
I'm not Catholic, just clarify.
No. Yeah, no, I get it. But you are very religious.
I'm Christian.
Yes.
Yeah, Christian,
yes.
not Catholic.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not very...
You're good. You're chilling.
But I think it's also very important that when we do have these debates and we do bring in this topic of abortion, I feel like we need to leave religion out of it. Because there are a lot...
This is just a talking point, because I don't know how many arguments I just made without even referencing God not one time. And I'm not religious. I'm agnostic, right? So I didn't make not one appeal to religion. I appeal to natural law, right? Natural law. That's what I appeal to. Hey, you think it's a mother's responsibility to look out for the best interest of her child? Yes. You can't be pro-abortion. So essentially, if you're a pro-abortionist, you're admitting that, hey, women should have the ability to treat their children like property, and they should be able to do whatever the hell they want to do because it resides in their body. On one hand, you want to hold both sides accountable. Okay, it takes two to tango. She didn't have the baby by herself, and you want the men to pay for her choice. What happened to my body, my choice? So if the woman decides I want to keep the baby, but the father doesn't want to keep the baby, what happens to the baby? The baby lives. The father wants to keep the baby. The mother don't want to keep the baby. What happened to the baby? The baby dies. That seems inequitable for me. That's unequal. That's an inequitable proposition to have, especially with women a lot of the days coming here pushing for equality. But it seems like women only want equality when it benefits them, right? And that's a big problem in our society. Our society needs to understand trade-offs, right? So we're getting into the final, I guess, segment of my story. And I think, I wanted to talk about student loan forgiveness, but I think a lot of the stuff that we'll be covering will be covered in this video about why a lot of young people do not understand socialism. And I think this is the ultimate trade-off, because right now it's popular for a lot of young people to say that socialism is good. Oh my God, our country would have been such a better place if we just had socialism. Capitalism is evil. You can find a bunch of videos of a bunch of young people saying that capitalism is evil, but I think these people are only saying that because they don't understand the trade-offs they'll be making by switching capitalism to socialism. So I found this clip from Jordan Peterson. I think I'm gonna try to watch like 2 minutes of it without interrupting it, of course, but no promises here. And he's gonna highlight why young people don't understand socialism. So I digress. Let's get into the video.
Unbelievably ignorant about history. And I mean, I would include myself in that, I mean, I know what I know about the history, say, preceding the 20th century is very sketchy. It's embarrassingly sketchy, and what young people know about 20th century history is non-existent, especially about the history of the radical left. I mean, how would they know? They're never taught anything about it. So why would they be concerned about it? And, for many of the people in the audience, you're old enough so that the fall of the Berlin Wall was, well, that was part of your life, that was really the end of the Second World War, let's say, in a technical sense, and it was very meaningful. But
sorry, I have to interject here. It highlights a point that I mentioned earlier in this video, is that a man who can read is forever free. And I think that a lot of people need to take charge of their own education. I think self-education is the path to a better America, a better future, in my honest opinion. That's the only reason why I want to homeschool my kids too, because I believe that the reason why I could explain these topics in such good detail and able to articulate myself pretty properly is because I read information for myself. And because I am my own arbiter and my own gatekeeper of dissemination and what I expose myself to, I have the power to learn anything. If someone gives me a narrative, oh, socialism looks good. Well, based on this book that I read, Naked Socialist, United States of Socialism by Dinesh D'Souza, here's all these facts and information that kind of counters this false opinion that you have about socialism. You fall into the pitch, the sales pitch. Oh my God, this Toyota is the greatest car ever. There's no car like it ever. This is what socialism do with their system. Socialists pitch socialism as the best thing since sliced bread. You buy into the idea, you implement socialism, and then it became everything that it said it wasn't. It becomes tyrannical. It doesn't give the surplus of food. It didn't make everything better. It made everything worse, right? They destroy your history so you don't have a chance to compare how it was in the capitalist system. This is the trade-offs people need to understand. This is why socialism always try to destroy history. Why they always try to rewrite history. 1619 Project is the perfect example of this. Why they always try to downplay, smear, or discredit the past as inadequate, not enough, right? Evil. This is why this is socialist tactics. Slander the previous regime. So that way you can't compare and contrast your current reality in socialism with your past reality of capitalism. Ask Venezuela. When Venezuela was a capitalist country, it was the richest Latin American country in the world. They introduced socialism. Look at it now. You couldn't get a business. You couldn't pay a business $1 billion to put their business in Venezuela. And you see all the poverty that's going on in that country right now. Right? This is why history matters. This is why history is important. Because history gives you ability to compare and contrast. Hey, price control. This is a socialist idea. Tax the rich. That's a socialist idea. Has it ever been tried before in human history? It has. What was the result? Famine, Great Depression. People couldn't find any economic position. The rich people just left the country and went to countries that treated them better, and then it ended up creating a brain drain because all the successful, smart people went along with them. The country became even more corrupt, even more broken, even more devastated. Ask Sweden. Sweden made a whole transition. Oh, we're socialists. Let's get back to being capitalists. Let's go becoming capitalists. And they still have some hangovers from when they were a socialist country, but they're transitioning towards capitalism. But here we are doing the exact opposite. Every day the left preach, we need to be like Sweden. We need to be like Eastern Europe. They're becoming more capitalist. If you look at the capitalist index, Sweden is more capitalist than the United States of America right now. Imagine that. But the left, oh, we should be like Sweden. No, you cherry picking examples here. Right? But we're going backwards as a country. And the reason why we're going backwards as a country is because young people are not learning from the mistakes of the past, the reality of the past, that socialism doesn't work. Every self-proclaimed socialist that attempted socialism created not real socialism. And for that, no socialist will be ever trusted. Oh, that wasn't real socialism. Well, your version of socialism isn't real socialism either. Because every socialist, every self-proclaimed socialist that attempted to usher in socialism never actually do the correct one. So is it even feasible for a human to usher in socialism? No. So why make us attempt it in the first place if there's a higher rate of failure with it? Socialism is not a durable idea because, like communists said, socialism is the path to communism. Communists are very reactionary, very revolutionary, very violent people. They'll come in, take over an institution, and kill the socialists, and then boom, usher in communism. Socialism is a necessary phase to happen for communism to come into fruition. And socialists ain't gonna stop themselves. More government power, more government ownership, more government responsibility. You're gonna naturally create communism. So understanding when the socialists try to say, "Oh, we're not communists." No, but your transition point for it. Karl Marx said it himself. Socialist is a transition point for communists. But, I digress. Let's get back into the video.
That's a long time ago. There's been a lot of people born since then. And it's ancient history. And we don't have that many good, bad examples left. There's North Korea. There's Venezuela. But we're not locked tooth and nail in a war with, in a proxy war or in a Cold War with the Soviet Union. And it's easy to understand why people are emotionally drawn to the ideals of socialism, let's say, or of the left, because it draws its fundamental motivational source from a kind of primary compassion. And that is always there in human beings. And so
socialism used compassion as a smokescreen to usher in mechanisms of control. A tyrant will not say to you, "Hey, I want to come into this country and rule with an iron fist." No, the tyrant will come in and say, "Hey, I'm here to protect you, but to protect you, I need you to give me power." That's how they talk to you, right? I made a mention in my the Naked Communists. The Naked Communists talk about how the reason why it's essential for socialists to be atheists is because if you're a religious socialist, it'll be hard for you to do what's necessary to bring in socialism. And for a lot of socialists, to bring in socialism, you have to lie. You have to do a lot of smoke screens. You got to pretend that, oh no, it's for some moral, virtuous reason that I need all this power. I need big government. I need control over your healthcare because I want to make it free for you. But then once I make it free, hey, I'm paying for your healthcare. I'm rationalizing healthcare. You're not allowed to have healthcare because you said something against the regime. Boom, you're stuck because you wanted free healthcare. If you're not responsible for your healthcare, you don't have authority over your healthcare. That's the reality of human nature. That's the reality of the world. If you ain't responsible for it, you don't have any authority over it. And socialism's whole proposition is they want you to give up authority. They want you to give up responsibility for your life so that way they're responsible for your life. And last time I checked, that was slavery. That's why I say socialism is slavery. But a lot of young, naive people don't understand that because they haven't read history. They haven't looked at what was the pitch? What was the self-pitch? What was Hitler telling Germans to get himself elected? Because remember, they elected dictatorship. They elected Hitler. Hitler didn't come in like a Gestapo and took over. No, they elected him. And instead of looking back and seeing, okay, how did Hitler get himself elected? What promises did Hitler make? If you look at the Nazis' platform, the National Socialist platform, A lot of the things they are talking about is some of the current platform that the Democratic Party are running on right now. Redistribution of wealth, welfare, taxing the rich, free healthcare. A lot of these concepts the Nazis ran on. And what did the German people get? Nothing. They got war. They got force. Because at the end of the day, when you change the incentive, hey, when you punish the most productive and talented people of your society who would have made more money than you, but you equalize everything. Hey, the janitor is making the same amount of money as a doctor. The doctor no longer has any motivation to continue being a doctor because it's harder to be a doctor, right? It's human nature. If I told you option A is harder than option B, but you get paid the same for both, you're going to choose the path of least resistance. Your laziness will hit in and say, hey, I want to pick the easiest path to get the same outcome. If I'm getting paid the same thing as a janitor, what's the point of even working? And then the government loses out on the doctor. The government's like, yo, we don't have enough doctors. What's going on? And then what happens? They have to force people to become doctors. You better be a doctor. What's the point of being a doctor? I'm getting paid the same as a janitor. Gun to your head. You better be a doctor if you want to live. And that's what naturally happens with socialism. But you know, a lot of people, we don't think that far ahead. We just think about the desirability of a policy. Oh, how desirable it would be to have free healthcare. But you don't look at the feasibility and the cost of free. You don't see the fact that some people use more healthcare than others. And people are paying more for healthcare because of fat people. Because of people with pre-existing health conditions. How is that fair? You're paying the same amount of money for healthcare, but there's disproportional use? I'm a healthy young man. I'm going to use less healthcare than a fat, obese, diabetic person. But me and her are paying the same amount of healthcare costs? No. And in the healthcare industry, they love that because they get to charge everyone the premium, the highest rate possible. Because, you know, you got to pay everyone got to pay the same thing. And they always complain, why is healthcare prices so high? Because the only two people pay healthcare, health insurance and the health providers. That's it. If it was more, if health insurance, then this is the capitalist way of solving high healthcare costs. Make it like car insurance, where you have the providers and the consumers, and there'll be, you know, markets, niches in the market. Hey, if you're a healthy person, go on our, like Progressive. Progressive only take in the best drivers ever who have low accident rates, and they give them lower rates. Why? Because they're less likely to use the health insurance, right? How about we add that? How about we make healthcare more like car insurance? Most checkups using healthcare, using health insurance, are just checkups. Most people use the most expensive time in people's lives for medical issues is the last 2 years of their life. That's when they use healthcare benefits the most. And people don't understand that. We can have cheap healthcare. It may not be free healthcare, but we can have cheap healthcare. That's the trade-off you make. The capitalist solution, you have control over your healthcare. You're responsible for your healthcare because you pay for your healthcare. That means you make decisions on your healthcare. Cheap healthcare. That's the option for cheap healthcare. Free healthcare. You don't have to pay nothing. You pay exorbitant amount of taxes, and the government gets to dictate whether you get to live or die. An example, a story in the UK. There was a baby. The parents wanted the baby to live. The UK was paying for that kid's the healthcare. The UK doctor said, hey, look, the kid has a low probability of actually making it. We got to unplug him. We got to take him off life support. The parents beg the UK government, no, let us move him to Rome. Let us move him to Italy. So that way we can continue paying for his life support. While the government said, nah, we're going to unplug him right now because he's taking resources from us. Because the cost of free healthcare is rationed healthcare. That means it's limited. You just become a number on the screen. Hey, this person's taking up too much money, too much resources, and he has the low odds of success, low odds of surviving. This healthcare, this money could be better used on someone who has a higher probability of living. We got to take him off. We got to unplug him. That's the reality of free healthcare. But as young, naive people, we don't think that far ahead. And this is why I say trade-offs must be understood in politics. I rambled a lot about that point, but I think that point I really need to make it. So I'm gonna give this video 2 minutes of uninterrupted streaming, and then I'll end it with my final thoughts at the end of it. Let's take a look.
That proclivity for sensitivity to that political message will never go away. And so, and it's important to understand that. You have to give the devil his due, unfortunately.
You've also said that people aren't as resentful at the success of others as we might think. And I think as you watch a lot of people being interviewed today, and you watch some of the students being interviewed, you saw some of the ones up here, you hear people talking a lot about inequality, but you say they really aren't as resentful as we might think, as long as they don't think the game is fixed.
Yes, well, that's certainly the case. Well, first of all, I mean, if you look at the psychological literature, to the degree that it's accurate, which is difficult to ascertain often, people report far more prejudice against their group than against themselves. So that's quite an interesting phenomenon as far as I'm concerned. So there's a tendency for people to exaggerate the degree to which the group they belong to is currently suffering from generalized oppression. They've been relatively free of it themselves. I also think that, yeah, fairness is an absolutely essential, and perceived fairness is an absolutely essential component of peace, because people can tolerate inequality, so to speak, or even revel in it, let's say, if they believe that the unequal outcome is deserved.
And I want to stop it there, and I give my final thoughts. Yes. And I think that's why socialists try so hard to say that racial disparities proves racism. That's why a lot of socialists, a lot of their arguments center around equal outcomes, right? And that's impossible. We should be focused on equal opportunity. This is why they focus so hard on equity. Equity is actually a term for socialism. Equity is actually socialism, yes. It's collectivist thinking. We all should have the same outcome, because I'm a black man just like you are a black man across the screen. And since we're both black men, that means we must make the same amount of income. But if I told you, oh, I'm a doctor and you're just a janitor and I make more money than you and I don't have the same lived experiences as you, you're going to say, oh, that's unfair. If you're a socialist, we all should be paid the same. And this is where this thinking comes from. It's rooted in equal outcome. And they try to use this fact that people don't have equal outcome as justification for why we should have socialism. You're right. We all can be equally poor, not equally prosperous. Because for prosperity, it takes work. For prosperity, it takes effort. It takes ability. To be poor, it doesn't take nothing. It's the easiest thing to be. It's easier to be poor than it's easier to be rich. And my thing is, and pretty much the message of this stream is going to be, pick your struggle. Trade-offs must be understood. Because if trade-offs is not understood, some politician can come in here, sell you the desirability of a policy. Oh my God, we could tax the rich and make $500 billion. We'd be able to pay for all this stuff. And you go, yes, we should do that. We're going to vote for it. We're going to tax the rich. Then before you get to tax the rich tells you, hey, we pay 70% of the tax revenue already. You want us to pay even more? You only pay 8% of your income. I pay 21% of my income. You should be paying your fair share. You tell the rich person. Then the rich person decides, okay, fine. You have it your way then. You voted in, because at the end of the day, rich people are a minority in this country. Yes, sad, boohoo, tears for them. And then you realize before, your representative that comes in who sold you the dream of taxing the rich, and you're sitting here anticipating the tax revenue saying, oh my God, here comes that $500 million. Then you find out that the entire rich population decided to get second citizenship somewhere else and revoke their American citizenship. Therefore, America no longer has any ties or any claim to get tax revenue from the rich. And then you find out that the amount of taxes that was existing prior is record low in the country. And you're going, what happened? You go to the politician. What happened? I thought taxing the rich will give us $500 billion. What happened to the $500 billion? And then your representative, we're going to call him Iden, the president Iden tells you, well, the rich people just left because they saw no benefit for being in this country anymore because we were going to tax them 21%. And they went to other countries that was better for them. And since we can't find the money out of them, we'll have to tax you that same amount. And now you're pissed. Now you're crying. Now you're mad. Now you find out that the government's in a budget shortfall because the rich people left. The rich people were responsible for 70% of the tax revenue. So therefore, they were negative 70% of tax revenue, so they couldn't pay for all your welfare programs. So you lost out, right? But you didn't think far enough. You didn't think how the other person would feel that they're already contributing 70% of the money, of the revenue that's being used by all of society, and you want even more money for them. And this is the negative results of policy. This is what happens when you don't understand the feasibility of a policy. You vote for things that will end up being, in the long term, the path to your own destruction as a country. Now you have record rates of poverty, right? Socialism never want to come into a poor country and make it prosperous. Socialists always want to come in after capitalism, bring the society into prosperity. That's when they want to take over. Oh, we got it from here, capitalists. You brought us out of poverty. We'll take it from here. That's always the socialist game. But, I digress. I hope you guys enjoyed that analogy. I think that was my attempt at storytelling. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section, in the chat, in the replay. What you guys think? Maybe I should try to attempt to illustrate the results of bad policy or the trade-offs of policy in the future on these streams. I'd like to hear your thoughts and feedback on this. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the stream. I really appreciate you guys watching to the end of the video. Don't forget to like the video on your way out. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. Bye-bye.